I love the way the First Gen Lounge makes me feel.
Because it creates a space where I belong.
Where we're able to create community.
The fact that it's a community.
It's a safe place.
It also gives me a place to understand different perspectives.
The stories of these individuals prescribe transformational perspective.
I receive encouragement, enlightenment, empowerment.
And also serve as a catalyst to just keep going.
Where we're able to be our true selves.
I'm allowed to be an unapologetic first gen.
And above all else, tell our story.
And every episode is unique.
I love it.
I'm your host, Dr. Eve, and I'd like to welcome you to the First Gen Lounge. Beautiful people, family, friends, allies, everybody, welcome back this week. And if you are new to the First Gen Lounge, I would like to welcome you for the very first time. Look, thank you for being here. Come back. If you like it, come back. And if you really, really like it, tell somebody that you know. Okay. So enthused to have the one and only Cassie B here today. And for y'all who don't know who Cassie B is, you got to know who Cassie B is. Because she is truly amazing, great energy, great personality, a go-getter, just a beautiful woman of color who I have really, really enjoyed connecting with. And I'm going to do like I always do. I'm going to step aside and let her tell you who she is and everything about Cassie B. Cassie B, how are you? Who are you? And what do you do?
Yes. Hello. Good. Well, you know what? This introduction, it made me want to hug you. I'm like, okay, you introduce me. You better go. Well, thank you. First and foremost, thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to be doing this with you. As she said, I am Cassie B. I'm the founder of my own wellness brand, Cassie's Cure, where I teach people how to practice self-care while building their self-confidence. And so I do that through my little self-care bootcamp, wellness retreats, webinars, workshops, and I really just try to focus on helping people choose themselves first and love themselves better. So I am all things self. I embody that through my brand. I started it as a blog in 2017. And then last year, I kicked it off and was like, you know what, we're going to make this a business, and started having my retreats, started doing my coaching and speaking. And here I am just able to help people realize, like, you know what? I am the shit. I am popping. I can set boundaries. I can love myself better. I can say no to people. And I'm like, yes, you can. So that is where I'm at. That is what I do. That is the core of Cassie's Cure. And then I just love connecting with other people because I am a first gen entrepreneur, first generation college grad, first generation professional, and first generation entrepreneur. So I try to inspire other people who have never built a brand or a business and know nothing about it, who come from low income backgrounds. I mean, literally to the point to where, like, I lived in a corner house and every Friday they would shoot me and we was always on the floor. I'm on down, you know what I mean? To now having a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, a 9-to-5 job, and my own business, I be sitting here telling people like, yo, you could do it because I did it. Okay, I'm not saying it now. So that is me. That is my brand. And yeah, that's Cassie B.
Like, I swear I'm talking to myself right now. Like, I just like, wait a minute, did I just record? Like, really though, but I love that. I mean, love your energy. And please, if I were with you right now, like I was over in Cali, you'd be getting a hug for sure, because, or you in Texas right now, because I know you'd be moving around. You home?
I am back in Cali. I'm back in Cali.
Okay, in Cali. Okay. That's funny. It made me want to, that I'm about to be cheesy. I'm going, yeah, I just had to do it. Whatever's. But that, I mean, that's a lot to say. Just listen, because then to be a young woman of color at that, and where statistically people like you and I are supposed to be barefoot and pregnant or got several, children by several babies' daddies and on welfare, but that ain't it.
Right?
That ain't it.
I think it's interesting that you say that too, because this upcoming Monday will be my 27th birthday. And thank you. And I probably for like the last 10 years of my life, every time I told someone my age, they'll be like, oh my gosh, you're really smart for a 26-year-old, a 20-year-old, a 21-year-old, a 16-year-old. And so I remember I would feel weird when people would tell me that. Because they'll be like, I wish I thought like you when I was 27. I wish I thought like you when I was 21. And I'm thinking like, well, how the hell is a 21-year-old supposed to think? Like, to me, it's normal for me to just kind of like think this way. that was another thing that I find within like my clients sometimes, or people that I talk to, you know, people downplay themselves because of their age or where they come from. I'm sitting there like, yo, I am young, and I have sat in rooms with people in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you know what I mean? And I've still been like, yo, this is me. Like my age don't define me. You know what I mean? It's my grind. It's my hustle, what I do. So you speaking had made me think of that for sure.
I appreciate that. And, you know, it's interesting because y'all may not hear this until like a few months from now, but shout out to the January babies, okay? Because I got a birthday coming up too. So we out here.
Yeah.
January takes over. But no, really, I think it's life experience that really shapes us. And I think it's life experience that makes us mature. And for those of us who are willing to receive the responsibility of adulthood, even if it means we are younger, similar to yourself, I think there's a lot to be said about that. And I was talking to my husband about it recently. We're both like old souls. We had a lot of influence by our grandparents, and in doing so, we don't need or want for or ask for much. We're not, you know, trying to like be out here in the streets. It's like when I was 23, fun for me was like kicking it, like just sitting at the house, watching TV, you know, spending time with friends. It wasn't, you know, having to be out and about and on the scene and doing stuff. So really our life does shape us, and who we become and how we receive what has happened to us really determines that. So that's what's up.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree.
So I'm curious to know, what are some of the things you wish you knew before you graduated from college?
Ooh, some of the things that I wish I knew before I graduated from college.
Oh, yeah.
I think, okay, so because obviously I didn't mention it earlier, but obviously, you know, my 9-to-5 is in the higher ed field. I work within residential life. And I think some of the things that I wish I knew before I graduated college is that college don't prepare you for the real world at all. Like it's a stepping stone, and we think that, oh, the moment we get our degree, oh, the jobs are about to start coming to us. I wish that I would have known that college is probably 25% of who I am, if that. You know what I mean? Like college is a step in my story. Because I got my bachelor's in liberal studies, I got my master's in higher ed, but I found my way to the Cassie's Cure, the wellness brand. My wellness brand ain't got nothing to do with my degrees. You know what I mean? So I think that I wish that I would have known going into college that some of the skills that I learned in college, I can transfer them to do what I really want to do in my personal life. It's like, hey, Cassie, you might apply to get a teaching degree, which is what I got, but you don't think you're going to be a math teacher. Now you out here being a wellness teacher. Like, I wish I would have known that sometimes when you get a degree, it doesn't mean you're going to end up in that field of work. Like in that point in time, when you're in college, you think that's the direction you're going to go, but you might go a different direction, and that's okay. Because I used to fear that, well, if I get this degree and spend all this money and I don't go into teaching, that's wrong, you know? Like, it's okay. There's so many people who have degrees in so many things, and you ask them what they do and they don't do nothing related to that degree. Now, I'm not just saying go out here and just get a degree and it don't matter. But what I'm saying is don't beat yourself up about it. You know what I mean? Because, you know, in higher, I have coworkers or friends who are in the same field as me. They got their master's degree in music. Ain't got, you know what I mean? So I want people to not put so much weight on their degree or let their degree define them or force them into one pathway. Because I'm doing my education, but I'm also doing my wellness. And I'm educated that way too. So don't let your degree force you into one direction. You have to choose your path more than you will let your degree choose your path.
I'm with it. And then it's so funny. Like Cassie said that I could do whatever. They're going to be sitting with their academic advisor. Well, I listened to this podcast and Cassie said, look, Cassie made it clear. I'm not telling you to act, act up. What I'm telling you is that, things do change, because you could have never convinced me 5, 6, well, I can't even say 5 years ago now because it's been 5 years, but I'm probably even go with 5 years. 5 years when I even left higher education, I thought it was just going to be a year-long sabbatical to where I was just figuring out what I wanted to do next to gather myself. And 5 years later, I'm literally still on my own. But you couldn't have told me that this is going to be the case for me, because I was convinced I was going to stay in higher education forever and, eventually be a college president. And that's what the path was for me. Yeah. And I discovered entrepreneurship. And I'm like, why ain't nobody tell me about this sooner? What? But I will say, at the end of the day, it's definitely exciting. To be able to open yourself up to what life has to bring, because the skills that I learned in school did research, people skills, communication, critical thinking, networking, all those things have absolutely come in handy. So I'm good.
Right. Yeah, that's what I like to tell people too. Like, a lot of people hear college and they think of class. I feel like class is 25% of the experience. The rest of it really is networking, the jobs you have on campus, the clubs you join, because I feel like the job opportunities I had got offered once I got my bachelor's degree, it was because of the people that I knew. But I was like, well, I'm actually going to grad school. But they, you know what I mean? Like, but they were like, Cassie, we've seen your work ethic. We want you to stay around. We want to hire you on. But I'm like, dang, okay, cool. I see y'all want to hire me. Cool, that's perfect. But I'm like, I actually am going back to school. So I'm going to holler back in 2 years, you know? Like, if you feel like the class isn't your strong suit, there's still a way for you to get employed or find your dream outside of that. You know what I mean? I think people quickly label themselves as a failure if they're not passing all the classes in college. Now, again, don't go out here not passing classes. But what I'm saying is don't lose all hope if you don't have the 4.0 GPA. You know what I mean? Like, if you're networking, doing what you need to do, someone will be reaching out to help you, whether that's like helping you learn how to increase your GPA or helping you get that internship, helping you network. You got to speak up in college. Don't go through all 4, 5, 6, or 7 years and not speak to nobody, because that networking is one of the most critical pieces in college, I think.
I'm with it. And, you know, as a first gen, especially as someone who's a graduate, what I find is I didn't have the social capital initially to be able to, like, networking, to be able to, you know, call and talk to people in New York or California or down in Georgia. And going to school opened up my world. So even if it's going to school to even just be exposed to people from different backgrounds and places and what have you, that's enough in itself, you know, because it really shapes you and it changes what you understand about life and everything else. So I'm with that. All right. So on the flip side, because, you know, we really try to talk to our fellow first gen college grads here as well. But actually, no, for real, that's like, you know, target. But thinking about it, what are some of the major life lessons that you have come across since you've been on your own, since you've been grown?
I would say one of the biggest ones that I recently had to teach myself is not to be afraid of being first gen. I'm a very courageous and a very bold person. And I do a lot of self-reflecting. Obviously, you have to in my brand specifically, but I don't fear a lot. But I realized, like, I was fearing being a first-gen college grad, a first-gen professional, a first-gen entrepreneur. There's so much fear with being first. But what I had to realize is, like, Cassie, you can't stop yourself from being the first. You can't. It's here. It's not going nowhere. Your parents can't go back and they can, but you still did it before them. Like, you know, like there's nothing I can do about being the first of anything. So I need to embrace it. And I need to just go ahead and do what I need to do so I can live the life that I want to build. So if you are afraid of being first, and I understand why you're afraid, because you're like, well, I don't want to do it wrong. What questions do I even ask? Who do I even ask? But I always tell my clients or anyone who hangs out with me or in my self-care community, there's no such thing as a dumb question. If there is, I have already asked it. So please go ahead and ask yours, because what I have learned is that through asking questions, I am defeating my fear. I'm learning, and I'm able to, the more knowledge that I gain, the more comfortable I feel. When I talk to my clients about confidence, I tell them a lack of confidence, in my opinion, is a lack of resources. So, like, people who aren't confident, usually they're missing some sort of resource to do something. I've never met someone who had all the resources that they needed and lacked the confidence still. I've met plenty of people who have all the resources that they needed and just are lazy and don't want to do it and don't care. But I've never met someone who said, you know what, I have every resource I need to do this, but I still think I can't do it. When you have all the resources you need, you're more willing to, like, you know what? Okay, cool. I got the support system. Okay, cool. I got the teacher that's going to be willing to teach me one-on-one. Oh, you know what I mean? Okay, cool. I got the tutoring. Like, when you have all that you need, you're more willing to do it. But when you don't have it, that's when you start telling yourself, well, I don't really know if I could do it because I need to do this and I need to get that and I need to, you know, you start doubting yourself. But so for me, my thing is, when I don't have confidence in something, I assess, okay, Cassie, well, what resource do you need? Like, what question do you need to answer? And then I write that down, and then I go out and look for it. And so I'll go on the Facebook group, hop on Clubhouse or whatever the case may be and ask. And when I ask, I'm like, okay, this makes sense. Now I feel like I can do this. I feel like I got it. Lack of confidence is a lack of resource, in my opinion, but I know everybody don't think the same.
You know, I've never heard that perspective, and I'm loving it because that's real. It resonates. Typically with people who have it financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically, whatever it is, they don't worry about it. You think about a lot of these people who are like Insta famous or influencers, they know that they have something, right? Maybe it's a good look. Maybe it's a product or a service or business. Like when you know that you have it, you jump into it. So like that's something to think about. I'm definitely that's a nugget for me. So I'm gonna take that myself. Think about it, to not show up in spaces and lack the confidence when it may just be the resource, because we know we can do stuff. I mean, come on, we first gens out here, we multiple degrees. So it's not that we're incapable. How do we get the degrees? Well, we had the money, we had, like I said, the mentorship. Something worked out for us to be able to be on the path, which I'm definitely loving it. Thank you for sharing that. So you talked a lot about your business, and that's something that, I want to, inquire with you about as well, because one of the things here is for us to talk about life and business. And you had mentioned it earlier, but similarly, being first gen low income, having excelled in so many ways, and even now being in entrepreneurship, I found that my financial freedom, my empowerment in my life came when I started my entrepreneur path. And just thinking about what it means for us to talk about working a 9-to-5, which I don't, knock anybody for that, because I know everything is different for everybody. But thinking about entrepreneurship and how it really opened my eyes to a different world, I really want to get more of us to do that. I've even created a program to help us to start our businesses and find those things. But what made you even want to do the entrepreneurial thing? Because you're higher ed, doing res life, you got housing and meal plan and all this stuff. What even interests you? I mean, for real, like what even interests you in that? Because that's not something, like you said, that we just naturally gravitate toward. It really depends on who we are.
Right. Okay. So for me, just my mindset, it was really my mindset, because I have developed this mindset of I refuse to live a life where I hate 50 of the 80 years. Like, you know what I mean? Like, at my last boot camp, I said, imagine having 80 years of life and you only enjoyed the last 10. Like, you deserve to live a life. Like, and I'm like, and you're with yourself 24/7, and you can't grant yourself permission to do the things that you want to do, that you love. You the only one living your life. And you're not for everybody else, people who don't care, people who are not going to remember. And so just kind of having that thought process of like, I can't see myself living a life that I don't love. I was like, well, what do I love to do? And as far as Cassie's Cure, I would be planning like little get-togethers and little programs. Res Life has that program experience. But I would do that for my friends. I would do like, little DIY, like, let's make Christmas wreaths, let's make candles, let's make soap bars. And people was like, my friends would always be like, Cassie, like, if you had a business like this, I would definitely come to it. Like, this would be so, like, it's so relaxing. It's so cool. And I was just doing it because it was what I liked to do. You know what I mean? Outside of my 9-to-5. And then eventually I was like, you know what? I should kind of turn this into a business, because I saw more and more people like asking for like, when's your next little paint and sip? When's your next little whatever it is? And I'm like, I just kind of wanted to do that because I wanted to hang out with my friends and paint. Like, but realizing how many more people, my friends, when they would post it on their social media, their friends would be like, is she having another one? When is her next one? What is she doing? And I'm like, I don't know them. And they're like, so girl, do another one. We'll all come. And I would like, okay, this is how much all the supplies cost. Give me $20 and I'll buy yours, and we just all get together. And then I realized, like, you know what? I can do this for a living. This is fun. I love this. Like, you know what I mean? Absolutely. So that's when it came to the business portion of it. And then just the Cassie's Cure portion of it. I was like, okay, Cassie's Cure is actually a play on words, as what I always tell people, because Cassie's Cure is my cure. It's for me. It's me doing what I love, but it's also me helping you love yourself better, and me helping you practice self-care, and me helping you realize, like, you know what, I need to create space and time for myself. It's me helping you practice that mental and emotional wellness, but it's also me doing what I love to do in my life. So that's why it's called Cassie's Cure, because I'm curing both of us. Like, So just kind of that in a nutshell was what really made me be like, you know what? I'm passionate about this. I love this. And as you said, you know, working in Res Life, it grants me certain amount of funds because I don't have to worry about others.
Yep. Probably the only thing I miss right now. Or
yeah,
one of the only things.
I'm like, okay, cool. I can buy my LLC. I can buy, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is a perfect job for me to kickstart my business.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? So that and pay student loans, but like, but yeah, this is a perfect opportunity. So that is why, and just to see how many people have went to my retreats or went through my self-care boot camp and they're like, Cassie, you don't know how much I needed this. And I'm like, you're right. I didn't know, but like, I knew it was a necessity because I felt like there aren't that many safe places where you could process your emotions for cheap and with no judgment.
Yeah.
I'm like, my self-care boot camp, right, is $400 for 6 weeks, 6 sessions, right? Whereas like when you go through therapy, that's $400 for 30 minutes. But it's like you get 6 sessions and you get a self-care community, and we're going in about like your confidence, your boundaries, your self-care game plan, branding you, how you want to be seen, how you want to talk about you know what I mean? Like really going into you. And I'm like, for 6 weeks, that's really good compared to a therapist being like, I'm gonna need $1,000 for 1 hour and I'm gonna need it right on time. Like people who went through my boot camp last time, I was like, you know what? We need to do a payment plan. I understand. And they were like, oh, this is even better because now they don't feel like they missed out on this opportunity because they didn't just have $100, $400 flat. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, no, you got 6 weeks. We got time. Like,
That's interesting. I mean, to think about, again, the thing with business is serving your customer. So the fact that you make them first, it's really important to think about that. But then there are always drawbacks to things. I will say that. So for those of you who are listening, like, oh, maybe I'll just go ahead and do payment plans for everything. Just to wait. You know, think about how that works for your business and your business structure, because it may not be something that is feasible for you to do over 6 weeks, but it is an option. And we'll talk about those, especially within the community, the Trailblazer community, just talking about how you do pricing, how do you decide if something like that is helpful or not. But then, so thinking about, you know, still in entrepreneurship, if you can go back to that first year when you started the blog and when you started thinking about moving into a business, is there anything that you would have done differently then?
The first year when I started it as a blog, anything that I would have done differently, because it was a blog for 2 years. I can't think of what I would have done differently because it originally started off for me. So the blog wasn't even like, hey everyone, check out my blog. It really was just therapeutic for me to just process emotions and write things out and talk about like self-love and self-care and talk about like, you know, insecurities, fears, and doubts. Like, and people, when my friends did read my blog, they were like, oh my gosh, I had daddy issues too. And I'm like, oh, I didn't, you know what I mean? I'm just talking about myself. But to start seeing people resonate, I think that I would have probably held more group discussions after the blog, because I would just let people comment and be like, oh, okay, cool, like chat. But I could have been like, hey, you know what? Actually, let's have a weekly group chat to kind of start building up my community a little bit more before I transitioned it into a business. If I had to say anything that I would have done, that would have been it. And then also, I would say, planned out my retreat a little bit more, but I hired a business coach. When I wanted to turn it into a business, I was just like, I don't know what to do. Let me hire a business coach because I don't know. Like, I knew I didn't know anything. And ironically, her name is Monica Stockhausen. Oh, she's so amazing. But I had hit her up. I was just like, hey, Monica, I want to start a business. This is what I want to do, but I don't have no idea how I'm going to do it. And she put me on as a monthly client, and I worked with her for 6 months. And every dime that I invested into her, by the time I had my retreat, I made all of that back and then some. And she really, like, she opened my eyes to being even more analytical. Like, who is your audience? What message do you want to send your audience? What do you want your brand colors to be? Like, what's your value? Like, I was like, girl, I knew I hired you for a reason because I ain't know none of this. Like, you know what I mean? So I would say that, like, for those who can't afford, YouTube University is real. You know, attending people's free webinars and talk sessions, really listening to people who have developed their LLC or people who have developed a wellness brand. Like, if you want to develop a wellness brand, go follow people who already have one. You know what I mean? That's something that I wish I would have done in the beginning, but once I started doing it, it was no stopping it. So now, like, on my Cassie's Cure page, most of the people that I follow are like self-care, self-love coaches, confidence coaches, business coaches, social media marketing, first gen people. Like, it's all tailored to a way to where I can learn. But then also I got my affirmations and my in between, and like people saying like, take a break. This is the day you deserve. Enjoy it. You know what I mean? Like, I have that care and I have that educational component to my timeline. So.
Absolutely. And, you know, thinking about all that you said, it's reason that I created the UW Trailblazer Society, because I didn't want for people to, one, who were feeling fearful about starting the entrepreneurial journey, to feel like they couldn't do it because they were scared, because they didn't know what to do. And then especially being first gen, sometimes first gen low income, just feeling like you don't have the resources. Like, there's so many things that we can do and tap into. And I'm like, so let me help you with that.
Right.
This is what I wish I would have had when I first started, because I spent YouTube University, Google College. Like, I did all that, you know, Instagram, and just was kind of digging and searching and losing time and hours. But I only did what I knew how to do, you know, considering the circumstance. And I have no regrets about it. But even to what you were saying about getting a coach, even if it's not me, I tell people, find somebody who can help you, but don't be afraid to invest. Because when you invest and you invest well, it's an investment, which means there's always going to be a return. And that's just dope. So I love all of that.
Right.
Kind of shifting gears a little bit, because we're kind of near the end of our conversation, which I'm really enjoying this, because I'm like, yes, you know, just the enthusiasm and the path and just how you are where you are and all the things you've done, I think that have been amazing. What do you think has helped you to be successful thus far in life and or business? So with whichever one, take it how you will.
I think what has helped me to be successful is my ability to be patient with myself. So I really had to learn that, like, when I can't get it all done in the same day, or, you know, like when I don't understand something, instead of being like, oh, Cassie, you're dumb, or you can't do this, really being like, it's okay, Cassie, you're learning. You've never done this before. So, like, really just, well, not coddling myself of being like, just giving myself all the excuses to slack off and all of that, but more so really just being like, you got this, girl, like, one day at a time. Like, you're gonna learn, you're gonna get it. It's that positive self-talk that I have to myself. That's what really keeps me going, because I had realized before I went to therapy back in 2015, I was so hard on myself. I was always just like, girl, come on, get it together. What's wrong with you? Like, you know what I mean? And after going to therapy, my therapist was like, Cassie, you gotta love yourself better. You have to speak to yourself positively. So when I do have my hard times, the more positive that I speak to myself in moments of defeat, the more optimistic I am, the more that I'm just like, you know what, it's okay. Today just wasn't the day for me to do it. And I can see that other people are starting to see it, because my supervisor yesterday had told me that. He was like, you know what, Cassie, he was like, you think positive. He was just like, every time something goes wrong, you're not like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. You're like, okay, y'all, we're going to get it together. It's going to take us an extra day rather than what we planned. And I'm like, I have to be that way, because if not, my mindset can be really defeating. It can be really like, girl, you a lost cause, you ain't got it going. But that patience of like, Cassie, it's going to be okay. And then I also do a lot of reflecting on how far I have come. When I look at how far I've come, it trumps all of the fear that I'm feeling in the moment. I'm like, girl, you done did all this. You in your own spot. You paying your own bills. You got your own everything. You gonna get there when it's time to get, like, you made a way literally out of no way. Like, a mom raising 5 kids by herself while her husband in jail. Like, you know what I mean? Like, girl, you don't, to be living where you're living, you alright. You gonna be okay. Like, that has really made a drastic difference for me, for sure.
I'm feeling that. To even not to make excuses and to get the help you need. Cassie, you just dope. I told everybody that though before, you know, right when we started, what I tell y'all, the Cassie B. But it's just the radiance, and in spite of what you've been through, how you still show up and to be such a light. That's what really draws me to you, because until hearing your story, I would never know. And you're like, well, what does that mean? Because some people only sit in hardship, right? We only sit in the negativity and I've never had, and this never happened to me, and it don't happen. But you're like, nah, I'm light, I'm love, I'm positivity, I'm investing, I'm moving, I'm shaking. And you didn't let your life be the crutch. for why you couldn't move forward or why you can't be who you are now. So yeah, loving it, digging it, all of that. All right, so we have come to the end of the conversation. Look, it was just that quick. I'm like, dang.
Right.
But I've got to ask the question that there's two questions I always ask. So tell me about yourself, and then there's this one where we're in. What is the piece of advice or the words of wisdom that you would leave us with to just hold on to for the rest of our lives?
I'll leave you with my favorite quote. I don't know who came up with it. I just saw it on the time. If y'all want to say it was me once you hear it on podcast, tag me, that's cool. But I don't know who came up with it. Once you accept your flaws, no one can use them against you.
Yes.
And that, for me, has really helped me deal with imposter syndrome. That has helped me deal for those days where I'm just like feeling imperfect. That has helped me when I just really feel like when someone's like, Cassie, you talk too much. Duh, girl, catch up. I already knew that. Like, oh, you so loud. I know. All right, next thing. Like, once you accept who you are, other people can't make you feel bad for being that way because you already know who you are. You already know what you are and how you are and what you do. Once you accept it, it's when you don't accept it and you accept other people's opinion, then you start being like, I need to change. No, you are who you are for a reason. And those who are for you will make space for you and without trying to change you.
Just take that. Just take it. Cassie, you are a beautiful person. You are truly a dynamic woman who's going to do a lot of amazing things in this life. And I just want you to continue to stay the course, no matter what happens. I don't doubt that you will, but I just need you to hear it, right? But thank you for sharing with us today, just for giving of your time and your energy, for putting us on game with Cassie's Cure, which we'll definitely be sharing information in the show notes, to get connected with you and to learn more about your programs and all of that. But just, again, thank you so much for that, for your being, your existence. And wow, I've enjoyed.
Thank you for having me. Likewise, I appreciate you. And I'm just looking forward to staying connected, even off the podcast. Like, we got us first gens got to stick together for sure. So thank you for just welcoming me to come on and just be me on your show, in your space. So I appreciate it.
Nothing else you should be but you. Well, you are so very welcome.